Millionaire accepts a bet to marry the woman everyone despised, but she gives him the biggest lesson of his life. Raphael was surrounded by everything money could buy. In that luxurious hall, with crystal chandeliers and refined furniture, he felt at the peak of his power. The night was just beginning, and the party, filled with elite guests, buzzed with laughter, champagne glasses clinking, and lively conversations. For him, these celebrations were simply a way to reaffirm his status, surrounding himself with equally powerful and influential people. It was a routine where he felt comfortable and secure. Beside him, his friends, some childhood buddies, and others business partners, chatted about their latest accomplishments and investments. The group had known each other for years, and they all shared the same mindset. Power and wealth were the only values that mattered. Then, amid the laughter, the conversation turned to relationships. "Ah, Raphael, you've always gotten everything you've wanted, always had the best women by your side," commented Marcos, one of his longtime friends, with a teasing smile. "But do you think you could win anyone?" Raphael laughed, confident that no challenge was beyond his reach. "That's hardly a challenge for me, Marcos. You know that." "Well, if it's so easy, I have a proposal," continued Marcos, provoking him. "See that woman over there?" He discreetly pointed to a young woman in the corner of the hall, alone, dressed modestly, and with a serious demeanor. "That's Beatrice, the city trash collector's daughter. Think you could make her fall for you? Even marry her, maybe." Raphael looked at the woman everyone ignored. Beatrice was nothing like the people who frequented that environment. Dressed simply, she didn't seem to care about the luxury surrounding her and kept her head high, even in the face of judging stares. She was almost invisible to the other guests, but something about her stance caught Raphael's attention. The challenge seemed tempting. "Is that your bet?" Raphael asked, laughing. "You want me to make that girl fall in love with me?" "Exactly. And not just that. I want you to truly win her over, make her believe you love her," Marcos provoked. The other friends laughed, finding the idea absurd and unusual. "Of course, if you can. After all, who would have thought that Rafael Montenegro, the famous charmer, would get involved with someone like her?" Raphael paused briefly, pondering the idea. To him, it was just a game, a way to pass the time. Deep down, he enjoyed proving he could get whatever he wanted, and a bet like this would be just another chance to demonstrate his power and control. "Deal," he replied confidently. "I'll win over this girl and prove to you all that I can have anyone I want." And so, with a final laugh, Raphael closed the bet. He thought it would be easy and fun, just one more of his many conquests. Little did he suspect that this simple agreement, made amid laughter and teasing, would completely change the course of his life. Raphael didn't have to wait long to see Beatrice again. 2 days later, he learned from a contact that she visited a small coffee shop in the city center every morning. He smiled, pleased with the opportunity. That morning, he arrived impeccably dressed in a well-tailored suit, turning heads the moment he walked through the door. The aroma of strong coffee mingled with the low hum of conversations and the sound of pages turning. And there she was, Beatrice, sitting at a corner table, reading a book as she sipped her coffee. The scene was unlike anything Raphael was used to. She seemed calm, serene, absorbed in her reading. What intrigued him most, however, was her complete indifference to the world around her. Unlike the people he usually surrounded himself with, Beatrice didn't seem interested in impressing anyone. Raphael adjusted his jacket and walked over to her table, determined. He stopped beside her, and she slowly looked up from her book. "May I sit?" he asked, with a rehearsed but confident smile. Beatrice raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised. "Is it taken?" Raphael hesitated, feeling unexpectedly disarmed. "No, it's free." He pulled out the chair without waiting for an answer and settled in front of her, certain an interesting conversation was about to start. Most women he knew would have already tried to make small talk or at least concealed a nervous smile. But Beatrice looked at him in silence, with a calm and steady gaze. "I've seen you a few times," he said, trying to break the ice, "but I don't think we've ever formally introduced ourselves. My name is Raphael." Beatrice observed him in silence, as if trying to understand his intentions. "I'm Beatrice," she replied, turning her attention back to the book in her hands. That unexpected reaction stirred something unusual within him. She wasn't trying to impress him or falling for his presence. It was rare, and in a way, challenging. Raphael hid the frustration that began to surface and persisted, determined to capture her attention. "Are you reading something interesting?" he asked, leaning in slightly, hoping her answer would reveal something about her. "For me, yes," she responded, without taking her eyes off the pages. After a pause, she closed the book, facing him with an enigmatic smile. "And you, Raphael? Do you usually spend mornings in small coffee shops?" He laughed, surprised by the turn of the conversation. "I admit, not usually, but I thought I'd try something different. I find it interesting to see how people live outside the circles I frequent." Beatrice narrowed her eyes, as if analyzing him. "Interesting. Usually, people who come here aren't concerned with seeing and being seen. They just want a quiet place. You're probably used to a different kind of crowd." Raphael felt challenged by the direct way she looked at him. She wasn't aggressive, but she also wasn't gentle or submissive like the women he was used to. "Let's just say it's always good to break routine," he replied, trying to maintain his confidence. "Do you work nearby?" She nodded, as if she didn't find it necessary to give more details. "Yes, but I don't work in anything that would interest you." Raphael smiled, intrigued. "Let me guess then. You seem to enjoy reading, so I imagine you work in something related to culture, perhaps?" Beatrice let out a light laugh, but there was something deeper in that reaction. "I'm just someone trying to live the best way possible, and I like coffee and cheap books," she replied, throwing him off balance. They sat in silence for a few moments. Raphael realized that this woman had a complexity he hadn't encountered before. It was challenging, and it bothered him that nothing he said seemed to impress her. His usual charm seemed ineffective. "You're different from the people I usually talk to," he finally admitted, genuinely trying to break the invisible barrier between them. "That interests me." Beatrice held his gaze, staying calm. "Maybe the difference lies in who you choose to listen to, Raphael," she replied, with a calmness that made him feel vulnerable. "Most people only care about what reinforces their own ideas, right?" It was the first time anyone had looked at him that way, as if seeing straight through the surface. He was left without a response, feeling both uncomfortable and intrigued. After a few more minutes, Beatrice gave him a slight smile. "Thanks for the coffee. I need to go," she said, rising with the same calmness she had arrived with. He was speechless, watching her leave. That conversation had left a deep impression on him. For the first time, he felt that winning over a woman might be a real challenge, something that would take him out of his comfort zone. As she disappeared through the door, Raphael decided he wouldn't give up easily. There was something about Beatrice that he needed to understand, something that eluded everything he knew. And he was determined to find out what it was. Raphael couldn't get Beatrice out of his mind. She was a mystery. There was something in her calmness and the way she seemed immune to his charm that left him unsettled. For the first time, winning someone over felt like a real challenge, and it struck a chord deep in his pride. In the days that followed, he began to frequent the coffee shop more often. He knew that around 8 in the morning, she always showed up to have her coffee. The second time he saw her, she just waved from afar, keeping her distance. But on the third time, Raphael approached again and asked to sit with her. "This time, I'll buy the coffee," he offered, with an easygoing smile. Beatrice raised her eyebrows, surprised but accepted with a nod. They started chatting more lightly, though she remained reserved. Their conversation began with trivial topics, but Raphael soon noticed that she was more than she appeared to be. Beatrice was intelligent and articulate. She had strong opinions on social issues, yet spoke with a genuine humility. For Raphael, this was entirely new. The people he knew either spoke to impress him or just agreed with everything he said. Let's have some fun with the readers who only check the comments. Type chocolate? In the comments, only those who reach this part will understand. Now, let's continue with the story. With each meeting, he discovered more about her. Beatrice spoke fondly of her father, the trash collector, who, according to her, was the most honest and hardworking person she had ever known. She shared that since she was a child, she admired the dignity with which her father performed his duties, facing prejudice with an admirable serenity. "My father always said that every job has its worth. and that dignity doesn't come from what you do, but how you do it, she said one morning, her eyes shining. It's something I learned early on. Raphael listened to those words in silence, impressed. There was something powerful in the way she spoke about her background, something that contrasted with the shallow values he had followed his entire life. Yet he still couldn't set aside the bet. He felt he was close to winning her trust, while at the same time becoming more confused about his own feelings. One day, he decided to invite her to dinner. He initially thought of something grand, a luxurious restaurant, but quickly reconsidered. He knew she would feel out of place in that setting. Instead, he suggested a small bistro with a cozy atmosphere, something simple and comfortable. "Would you like to have dinner with me?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Beatrice gave him a slight smile, almost as if she had anticipated the invitation. "You don't seem like the kind of man who goes to modest places willingly, Raphael," she replied, with a hint of teasing. "Maybe I'm trying to try new things," he said, not losing his smile. "So what do you think?" She agreed, but with one condition. "Only if you promise we'll go somewhere simple, without extravagance. I like dinners where I can feel at ease." Raphael nodded, hiding his surprise. He couldn't remember the last time someone had challenged him like that. During dinner, he realized that Beatrice was different from any woman he had ever known. She laughed freely, without any worry of hiding who she was, and for the first time, Raphael felt drawn to something beyond appearance or status. The evening stretched on with conversations, laughter, and discoveries. He found himself sharing personal stories he would never normally reveal, showing parts of himself he usually kept hidden. When the night came to an end, they walked together to the bus stop, where she would catch her ride home. Without thinking, Raphael offered her a lift, but Beatrice politely declined with a smile. "It's a habit of mine," she said. "I prefer to go home on my own, but thank you." He watched her leave, feeling something new, something he had never experienced before. For the first time, Raphael felt that winning Beatrice over wasn't just about a bet. He was beginning to genuinely care. But deep down, he knew he wasn't being honest with her yet. The bet, the secret, and the shallow motivation that had started all this weighed on his mind, like a shadow threatening to stain this unexpected feeling that was beginning to grow. That week, his meetings with Beatrice became frequent. Every conversation, every smile she gave him seemed to melt a bit of the barrier he had always kept around himself. Beatrice was different from all the women he had met. She wanted nothing from him except genuine company, someone with whom she could talk without pretense or hidden motives. And for Raphael, this was something new and captivating. But one evening, during a gala party, Raphael was reminded that this relationship had a far less innocent starting point. In the middle of the party, he ran into Marcos and a few other friends from his elite circle. They were chatting animatedly, talking about recent business and accomplishments, when Marcos, with a mischievous smile, brought up the topic of Beatrice. "So, Raphael, bet going?" Marcos asked, with an ironic laugh. "Have you managed to win over the maiden?" Raphael swallowed hard, feeling an unexpected discomfort. He looked at his friends, who eagerly awaited his response. Normally, he would play along easily, but something held him back. Remembering that all this began as a bet now felt like an unbearable weight. "She's not a bet, Marcos," he replied, more serious than he had intended. Marcos laughed, noticing the change in Raphael's tone. "Oh, come on, Raphael. Don't tell me you're starting to fall for her. That's not what we agreed on, is it? After all, Beatrice is just for fun, a way to prove you can get anything. Didn't you say that yourself?" Raphael looked away, feeling a pang of guilt. Those had indeed been his words, but now they felt strange and uncomfortable. Seeing the cynical faces of his friends, he realized he had changed, and that somehow Beatrice had transformed him. But pride got the best of him. He didn't want to seem weak in front of them. "Of course," he replied, forcing a laugh. "I'm just having fun, like anyone would." The friends laughed, satisfied, and the conversation returned to its usual trivial topics. But inside, Raphael's discomfort lingered. That exchange with Marcos and the others had left him conflicted. Part of him wanted to keep the bet as a light-hearted game, a simple amusement. After all, giving up now would be a humiliation in front of his friends, something he couldn't bear. But another part one he wouldn't even admit to himself, no longer saw Beatriz as just a game. The next day, he met with her again. As they walked through the park, he listened to her talk about her dreams and aspirations. She spoke of her wish to start a social project to help young people gain access to education and work, offering opportunities she herself had never had. "I don't know how I'll do it yet, but I know it's what I want to do," she said, with a determination that shone in her eyes. "I believe everyone deserves a chance to grow. They just need someone to believe in them." He watched her, fascinated. The purity and sincerity of Beatriz contrasted with everything he knew. The people around him were always in pursuit of power and prestige, but she spoke of helping others without expecting anything in return. It stirred something deep within him, but also made him feel like an imposter, a liar. He was with her because of a shallow, selfish bet, and now he found himself unable to tell her the truth. Beatriz noticed his silence and looked at him, curious. "Are you okay, Raphael?" He hesitated, feeling a lump in his throat. Part of him wanted to confess everything, to tell the truth, but pride and fear held him back. "Yes," he lied, smiling. "I was just impressed by your outlook on life. I don't know many people who think like you." Beatriz smiled, grateful for the comment, and they continued their walk. But the feeling of dishonesty lingered within him. With every word exchanged, the guilt accumulated, becoming a weight he didn't know how to bear. The conflict between the image he had always maintained and the desire to become someone worthy of Beatriz's respect felt like a constant battle. At the end of their walk, as they were saying goodbye, she surprised him with a simple, sincere gesture. She gave him a hug. "Thank you, Raphael," she said, "for listening to me. I know not everyone understands." Raphael stood still for a moment, feeling the warmth of her embrace, and realized he was losing control. She was no longer just a bet. At that moment, he knew he was genuinely involved, but he also knew he had much to lose if he didn't reveal what he was hiding. The conflict between truth and his pride grew heavier by the day. As he watched her leave, he felt that his decision couldn't be delayed much longer. He had to choose whether to keep playing or reveal the truth. And whatever he chose could change everything. Raphael was restless. The days he spent with Beatriz were both wonderful and torturous. The more time he spent with her, the more the bet became a dark shadow in his mind, something that wouldn't let him rest. What had started as a game, a provocation, now felt like a web of lies he himself had spun and was now trapped in. To his own surprise, Beatriz's company not only made him feel at ease, it made him think. In their conversations, she challenged him to question his beliefs and attitudes, speaking about things he had never considered important. Beatriz showed him a world of simplicity and value, a world where respect and honesty held more worth than any amount of money or appearance. One day, as they met in the park, Raphael asked her why she always spoke so passionately about social causes and people facing hardships. To him, these were distant concepts, problems that didn't affect him, but to her, they were personal issues. "I believe each of us has a responsibility," she replied as they walked. "If we have any privilege, any resources, we should use them to make a difference in other people's lives. I grew up watching my father fight for respect, seeing my mother work hard to keep our family's dignity. If I can do something to help others face fewer challenges, I will." Raphael listened in silence, absorbing those words. No one had ever spoken to him about responsibility like that. His entire life had always been about personal achievements and success. But Beatriz spoke simply and sincerely, as if helping others was just natural. As she spoke, he began to feel ashamed of himself, of the way he'd lived his life, and especially of what he was hiding from her. Beatriz trusted him, shared her dreams and ideas, while he, on the other hand, carried a secret that could destroy her. For the first time, Raphael found himself torn between maintaining his image and being honest. "You truly think differently from anyone I've ever met," he said, stopping and looking directly into her eyes. "I don't think I've ever stopped to consider things the way you do." Beatriz smiled genuinely and replied simply, "That's okay, Raphael. Everyone has their own path, but the important thing is being open to learning. No one is completely ready." They continued walking side by side, but Raphael could hardly hear what she was saying. Her words were kind and understanding, but the weight of his lie grew heavier with each passing moment. He was more involved than he'd ever expected, realizing that Beatrice had become essential in his life. Yet the bet, that empty, shallow motivation that had started it all, was now a constant reminder of the deception he carried. He didn't know how to tell the truth without risking everything they had built together. He felt powerless, unsure if he could face the consequences of honesty. Raphael's inner conflict began to affect his behavior. During a dinner, as they talked about the past, Beatrice observed him with curiosity. "Are you okay, Raphael? You seem distant." He hesitated, searching for an answer to mask his guilt. "Yes, of course. It's just that. Sometimes I find myself thinking about the choices I've made in life," he said, partially sincere. Beatrice looked at him kindly. "I think about my choices a lot too, but I believe we all have the power to change, no matter what's happened before. There's always a chance to start over." Those words struck deeply. Raphael knew he was at a crossroads. He had two choices: continue the pretense and uphold his image before his friends, or be honest with Beatrice and risk losing everything. The second choice required courage, a courage he wasn't sure he possessed yet. As he took her home that night, Raphael observed her quietly, realizing how much she meant to him. She was more than a bet. She was someone he wanted to be honest with, someone he wanted to impress for who he truly was, not for what he represented. But the words remained stuck. He said goodbye with a hug, feeling that simple gesture meant more to him than any achievement in the past. He stood there, watching her disappear through the door, guilt eating at him. When he got home, Raphael found himself staring at his own reflection in the mirror, feeling like he was looking at a stranger. Who was he, really? A man who had built his life on image and status, or someone who now saw value in the simplicity and truth Beatrice had shown him? The answer was still unclear, but he knew that the decision he would make soon would define the man he would become from this point forward. Raphael couldn't bear the weight of the secret any longer. With each meeting with Beatrice, he felt the bet suffocating him, like a constant shadow that made his feelings for her seem false and impure. He knew that to truly earn her respect, he needed to be honest, even if it cost him the relationship that had unexpectedly become the most important one in his life. That night, he prepared everything. He invited Beatrice to dinner at a special place, a quiet and discreet restaurant with a wide view of the city lights. He wanted a place where they could talk without interruptions, where he could be honest about his feelings and about the truth. As he waited for Beatrice, Raphael looked out over the city below, the distant lights flickering. He felt torn between fear and the need to be truthful, knowing that this confession could destroy everything. When Beatrice arrived, he was speechless for a moment. There was something about her presence that made him question every decision, every word he was about to say. She smiled as she sat down, noticing his tense expression. "You seem worried, Raphael. Is everything okay?" He hesitated, his breath unsteady. "Beatrice, I need to talk to you. There's something you need to know." She watched him, her smile fading slowly as she sensed the seriousness in his expression. Raphael felt the weight of the words he couldn't bring himself to say. How could he explain something so cruel? How would she react upon discovering that it all began as a meaningless bet? But before he could continue, the sound of laughter caught both of their attention. Raphael looked up and his face went pale. Near their table, Marcos and a few other friends approached with cynical smiles and mocking expressions. They hadn't missed the chance to witness Raphael's final conquest. "Let's play a little game with those who only read the comments. Type pizza in the comments. Only those who reach this part will understand. Now let's continue with the story." "Raphael, what a surprise to find you here. And with such good company I see," said Marcos with an enigmatic smile. He glanced at Beatrice, studying her as if she were an exhibit, then turned back to Raphael with a look full of malice. Beatrice, feeling uncomfortable, looked at Raphael, seeking some explanation for his friend's attitude. He tried to wave Marcos off, but his friend leaned in closer, ignoring the hint. "So, Raphael, sealing the deal? Or is this bet turning out to be more than you expected?" The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Raphael felt his blood freeze. Beatrice looked at him, her face filled with shock, trying to understand Marcos's words. He wanted to say something, to explain, but it felt like everything was falling apart. "A bet?" Beatrice asked, her voice low but firm. She stared at him, the surprise on her face gradually transforming into something deeper, something between hurt and anger. "What is he talking about, Raphael?" Raphael opened his mouth, but the words failed him. All the preparation, the desire to confess, was overshadowed by the horror of the situation. In that moment, he saw her trust in him shatter. "Beatrice, I wanted to tell you," he began, desperately trying to salvage the situation. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started as something stupid, but you became so much more than that." She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening, yet she held her composure. "So it's true? I was just a bet to you?" Her words fell like a sentence. He tried to reach for her hand, but Beatrice pulled back as if his touch would burn her. The pain in her eyes was more than he could bear. "You used me, Raphael," she said, her voice trembling but controlled. "I opened up to you, trusted you, and you toyed with my feelings, with my life, just to amuse yourself and your friends." "No, Beatrice, it's not like that anymore. I've changed. I wanted to tell you, I was afraid of losing you," he pleaded, feeling despair wash over him. Beatrice let out a bitter, pained laugh. "Afraid of losing me? Raphael, you never had anything to lose because you were never honest from the start." She stood up, grabbed her bag, and gave him one last look. "You taught me a lesson, Raphael, the hardest one I've ever learned. Not everyone sees the value in who we truly are." He stood there, frozen, watching her walk out of the restaurant, knowing that everything he truly cared about had slipped through his fingers. The truth, finally revealed, had cost him Beatrice's heart, and he knew he might never recover what he lost in that moment. Time seemed to pass slowly and heavily for Beatrice after that night. Raphael's words, the betrayal, and the feeling of being humiliated so deeply left her submerged in a quiet, persistent pain. But, unlike what many might have expected, Beatrice didn't allow herself to be consumed by it. She knew she had to be stronger than the situation, stronger than the scorn and disappointment she had felt. In the days that followed, Beatrice kept to herself, avoiding places she used to frequent, and focusing instead on her work and the small projects she'd always dreamed of starting. One of these, in particular, was the idea of creating an organization to help young people from underserved communities develop professional skills and gain access to a quality education, something that she and many others hadn't easily had. The pain turned into fuel for her project. Determined to make a difference, Beatrice dedicated herself to seeking sponsors and designing every detail of the program she wanted to offer. She spent months immersed in work, meeting people who shared her vision and wanted to help. Gradually, what had once been just a dream became a solid reality. Her nonprofit, named Horizons, began to take shape and soon started attracting attention. Within a few months, Beatrice had already organized events, raised donations, and started the first group of young people benefiting from her project. Each one of them, upon entering the doors of the nonprofit, found in her an inspiring mentor, someone who had faced her own challenges and now wanted to encourage them to move forward. For Beatrice, nothing brought greater satisfaction than seeing the spark of hope in the eyes of these young people, many of whom had never had a real chance at success. The local press soon began covering the impact of Horizons. It was rare for someone from a humble background like her to attract the attention of sponsors and build a solid project. Her story inspired and moved people. The public saw her as a determined woman who had overcome hardships and was transforming the world around her. Over time, Beatrice was recognized not just as the daughter of the town's trash collector, but as a leader with a powerful mission. Yet, there was something she never allowed to show: the deep hurt she still carried from Raphael. Despite all the success and recognition she was beginning to achieve, part of her heart remained scarred by that betrayal. She knew that healing would be a long process, but she believed that by helping others, she was also helping herself to move on, and perhaps even forgive. As her project grew, Beatrice began receiving invitations to speak at larger events, where she shared her story and encouraged others to follow a similar path. In her speeches, she always mentioned the lessons of humility and resilience she had learned from her family, emphasizing the importance of dignity and honest work. Her values, always steadfast, became the foundation of her public journey. Every new achievement was another step in her healing process. As time passed, Raphael became a distant figure, and the pain transformed into a quiet drive that motivated her to grow even further. She had found a strength she never knew she possessed, using it to light the path for everyone around her. By the end of that first year with the nonprofit, Beatrice was no longer the simple, overlooked woman she once was. She was a respected figure, someone who, despite pain and hardship, had turned suffering into a source of power and transformation. For Raphael, the months following the breakup with Beatrice were a harsh wake-up call. At first, he tried to move on as if nothing had happened, convincing himself that everything would be fine. He returned to his circle of friends and luxurious parties, surrounding himself with people who reinforced the image he had built. However, something inside him had irreversibly changed. Conversations with his friends now seemed shallow and empty. The expensive dinners, the cars, the trips, none of it fulfilled him. When he was alone, memories of Beatrice haunted him. He remembered every sincere conversation, every smile, the way she seemed to view life with a brightness he had never appreciated. The guilt consumed him, especially when he thought about how she discovered the bet. Marcos and the others still laughed at the situation, thinking he had merely lost another source of amusement. But Raphael knew he'd lost much more. Beatrice had been the only person who truly saw him, and he had destroyed that. Over time, his work began to reflect the same emptiness he felt inside. Raphael started making mistakes. Small distractions turned into major financial losses, and impulsive decisions cost him important contracts. His once stable business began to lose its prestige, and he felt the weight of each failure as a bitter reminder of his own superficiality. His business partner's confidence dwindled, and the mounting stress made his daily life unbearable. It was amid this crisis that he stumbled upon an article about Beatrice and her nonprofit, Horizons. The headline described her as an inspiring leader and a woman changing lives. The article detailed Beatrice's journey, highlighting how she had overcome obstacles and built a project offering opportunities for disadvantaged youth. The photos showed her surrounded by smiles and looks of admiration. Beatrice seemed to glow, at peace with herself and with a clear purpose. Raphael couldn't escape the pain he felt seeing those images. Her success was proof of the value she'd always had, something he had never understood. And for him, there remained only regret and the realization that he had done nothing truly meaningful in his own life. Driven by an impulse, he visited the nonprofit's website and read every detail about Beatrice's work. With each line, he felt the gap between them grow wider. She had found a purpose, something that didn't just change her life, but also the lives of hundreds of others. Raphael, on the other hand, could only see the emptiness of his achievements and the cost of his choices. Beatrice's words echoed in his mind, especially the last thing she had said to him. Not everyone sees the value in who we really are. He finally understood what that meant. All his life, Raphael had been someone who valued appearances, who judged people by what they had. Now he realized he had wasted a chance to truly know someone special, someone who saw value beyond the surface. That night, Raphael thought deeply about the man he had become and what he might have been if he'd made different choices. He knew he couldn't change the past, but for the first time, he felt a genuine desire to change himself. Losing Beatrice had left a void that nothing could fill, but perhaps he could use this experience to become a better person. With a feeling of defeat and at the same time clarity, Raphael decided it was time to let go of everything false in his life. The only way to honor what Beatrice had taught him was to start over, even if that meant giving up everything he thought was important. A year after losing Beatrice, Raphael still thought of her. Her image remained vivid, a mix of admiration and regret. Now, every time he heard her name, it was in the context of success, whether in a news story, an interview, or at events where the Horizons nonprofit was recognized for its inspiring work. But none of these moments had prepared him to see her in person again. It was a cold evening, and Raphael had arrived at a social event for entrepreneurs and philanthropists without high expectations. He was walking through the hall, greeting familiar faces, when his gaze fixed on the main stage. There she was, Beatrice. He froze, watching her smile as she spoke with the organizer. Dressed simply yet elegantly, she seemed to radiate confidence and calm. Raphael stood in silence as she approached the microphone and with a steady voice greeted the audience. Good evening. Today I have the pleasure of sharing the work of our nonprofit, Horizons, and the impact we're making in the lives of young people who need opportunities, she began, with a passion that kept the audience captivated by every word. Raphael's heart raced. The way she spoke, with genuine emotion, made him an entranced spectator. Each sentence revealed who Beatrice truly was, a woman of deep principles and values. The presentation was direct and inspiring. Beatrice spoke about the challenges faced by the nonprofit and shared stories of the young people it had benefited. As the audience rose to a standing ovation at the end, Raphael felt a mixture of pride and bitterness. He had lost someone extraordinary, and it was all due to his own arrogance. When the talk ended and the audience began to disperse, Raphael gathered his courage. He approached slowly, hoping she would notice him. Beatrice was talking to some guests, but when she saw him, she paused, surprised. Her eyes met his, and for a moment the tension between them was almost tangible. Raphael, she said, keeping her expression neutral. I didn't expect to see you here. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. I was in town and decided to come. I've heard a lot about your work, and I wanted to see it for myself. She nodded, observing him with a hint of distrust. I hope you enjoyed it. These young people have taught me just as much as I've taught them. Her calm only heightened Raphael's tension. He searched for words that might convey the regret he had carried for so long, but nothing seemed enough. Beatrice, what you've done with the nonprofit, it's incredible. I really admire what you've built. Thank you, Raphael, she replied, formally. She was being polite, but he could sense the distance between them. Then, without much thought, he went straight to what had truly brought him there. Beatrice, I need to apologize for everything, he said, his voice softer and filled with sincerity. I was a fool, selfish. I thought I could use you for my own amusement, but you showed me something so much bigger, something I didn't know I needed. She hesitated, surprised by the honesty she sensed in his voice. I've heard that before, Raphael. She replied, with a vulnerable look he hadn't expected. Apologies are easy when someone has already moved on. Let's play a little game with those who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who reach this part will understand. Now let's continue with the story. He felt a pang at her words, but didn't pull back. I know I can't change what I did, but I've never forgotten you, Beatrice. All this time, I've realized that you were the only person who saw me for who I really am. Losing you over that mistake still haunts me, and all I ask, if there's any chance for redemption, any chance at all, I want to prove I can be different. Beatrice looked at him, and for a moment, Raphael noticed an emotion that was still there, hidden. She glanced away, trying to process what he had said. There were still mixed feelings within her. Memories of good moments, of smiles and honest conversations. But there was also pain. Raphael, She paused, taking a deep breath. I've moved on. I don't know if I can just ignore what happened. I understand, but please let me prove I've changed, he insisted, feeling the urgency grow. I know you still feel something, and I know you have every reason to doubt me, but if there's a way to start over, to pick up where we left off, just tell me. She looked at him, clearly torn and emotionally conflicted. Raphael was different. He seemed sincere and vulnerable, in a way he never had before. She wanted to believe him, but the fear of disappointment was still a barrier. Part of her, however, wished he truly was the person standing before her now, a man who had learned from his mistakes. Raphael, she murmured hesitantly, I need time. There's still so much that hurts. I feel something for you, but I also feel the weight of what happened. I'll wait as long as you need, he replied quickly. If you still feel anything, even just a trace, I promise I'll do everything to never disappoint you again. Beatrice bit her lip, uncertain, but something in her expression softened. There was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there when they first started talking. A spark of hope, something that told Raphael that perhaps, just perhaps, he had a second chance. I'll think about it, Raphael, she said, in a tone that, though hesitant, left room for something new. But I need time, and you need to show me it's real. He nodded, relieved. He knew everything wasn't resolved, but her response was enough to rekindle his hope. As he watched her walk away, he felt more determined than ever. Now he had one last chance, and this time he wouldn't waste it. Raphael waited. The days following his reunion with Beatrice were filled with both hope and anxiety, and each day without word from her made him reflect even more deeply on the weight of his mistake and its impact on both their lives. But he knew she needed time, and it was up to him to be patient and consistent, proving that what he'd said was true. To his surprise, a week after the event, he received a message from her. It was brief and to the point. "Can we talk tomorrow?" Just those words, but to Raphael, it felt like an invitation to start fresh. That night, he barely slept. The memory of what he'd said to her at their reunion, the hope in her eyes, all of it filled him with a determination he hadn't felt in a long time. The next day, he arrived at the cafe where they'd agreed to meet earlier than scheduled, and as he waited, he recalled their first meetings there, in that very place. Beatrice arrived right on time, and as he saw her, Raphael's heart raced. She looked beautiful, calm, though he could sense a subtle tension in her eyes. Sitting down at the table, she didn't say anything at first, just watched him with that gaze that had always had the power to disarm him. "Thank you for coming," he began, breaking the silence with a voice full of sincerity. "I needed this conversation too," Beatrice said straightforwardly. "After that night, I started thinking about everything we went through and the words you said, and it wasn't easy. I felt that what you said was sincere, Raphael, but a part of me is still afraid to trust you again." He nodded, his expression respectful and serious. "I understand, and I don't expect you to forget what happened, Beatrice. I only want a chance to be the person you deserve, to build something real, without lies." She sighed, looking out the window, as if searching for clarity in her own emotions. "The truth is, I couldn't forget you, even after everything that happened. And despite all the pain, I found myself wondering if you might have truly changed." Raphael felt a surge of hope at her words, but restrained himself. "I have changed, Beatrice. You helped me see life in a different way, to see value in people and in myself in a way I never understood before. It wasn't easy to admit that I was the problem, that pride and selfishness had blinded me. But you showed me what's real." Beatrice looked at him, and in her eyes was a glimmer of emotion. "Raphael, you hurt me deeply, but at the same time, you made me stronger. I never thought I'd hear these words from you again, but I feel that you're being honest." "I am," he replied firmly. "And I know I can't change the past, but I want to build a future. I want you to know that you truly matter to me. I never want to lose you again." She looked away with a slight smile, as if trying to hide her emotion. "I didn't want to lose this either, Raphael. But you need to know that I'm different now, and I can't accept anything less than something real and solid." He reached out his hand across the table, hesitant but hopeful. "So, can we start over? No big promises, just one step at a time. I'm here for you." Beatrice looked at his hand and, after a moment, gently held it. "I'll take that chance, Raphael, but I want it to be genuine, a place where we can be open and I can trust you." Raphael felt his heart warm at her words. He knew he had a new chance, and this time, he wouldn't waste it. They stood up from the table together and left the cafe, walking side by side through the city streets. Each step felt like a silent confirmation that they were ready to build something real. As they walked, Raphael held her hand, and this time it was she who gave it a reassuring squeeze, signaling that the past, though still present, would no longer define them. Both carried lessons learned and wounds healed. But there, by her side, Raphael felt he had finally found the peace and purpose he'd been searching for. For him, Beatrice wasn't just a successful woman. She was someone who transformed him and who now chose to walk by his side. And for Beatrice, this new beginning was proof that true love could exist, even after so many twists and challenges. Months passed since Raphael and Beatrice decided to start anew. Since that conversation at the cafe, they took things slowly, rediscovering each other and building a relationship based on honesty and understanding. Every day, Raphael showed the change Beatrice had inspired in him. He became actively involved in social initiatives, and his company, now with a philanthropic arm, began making a positive impact on many young lives. Beatrice, in turn, felt more secure than ever. She continued her work with the nonprofit with the same passion, and by Raphael's side, she found a new kind of support and partnership. Though she'd been hesitant to trust him again, his actions showed that the old Raphael, the arrogant man ruled by pride, was gone. In his place was a partner she admired and respected. On a sunny afternoon, the two strolled through the park where they used to meet in the past. Raphael held Beatrice's hand, smiling as he remembered how much had changed between them. "It's funny to think of everything we went through to get here," he said, looking at her tenderly. "If someone had told me that the man I was a year ago would be here like this, with you, I wouldn't have believed it." Beatrice smiled, squeezing his hand. "I wouldn't have imagined it either. But I believe everything has a purpose, Raphael. And somehow, I think what happened made us better." He stopped, looking deeply at her. "You, Beatrice, have been my greatest lesson, and I hope to keep learning from you for the rest of my life." She embraced him, feeling that she had finally found someone who not only understood her, but shared her values and dreams. And in that moment, in the middle of the park, surrounded by the sound of leaves in the breeze and children's laughter in the distance, they knew that despite a rocky start, they had found true and lasting love together. What did you think of Raphael and Beatrice's story? Share your opinion in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, what rating would you give this story? If you enjoyed it, subscribe to our channel and see you in the next video.